Okay, welcome to part two. I won't take up too much more of your time here. Let's just go finish up these last couple of examples quickly. So where we left off was that we had our function here. We want to solve f of x equals 5. So I'm going to have 5 equals 1 over x minus 3. And then we can just use algebra to solve here. So multiply both sides of the equation by x minus 3. Becomes a little bit easier to solve. So quickly run through those last couple steps of algebra, and you'll wind up with x being plus 16 over 5, 16 over 5. Yeah, and you could have also gotten this by using the original equation as well, but you can see that when you went to multiply both sides by x squared minus 7x plus 12, you'd have had a quadratic equation to solve, and it would have gotten you the right answer in the end anyways, but this one is definitely much easier to solve than using the original function. So let's take a look now at this last little bit here. It asks if f of x is equivalent to 1 over x minus 3. And at first glance, it seems like it might be, because f of x, once we started up here and worked through it and simplified it, we got 1 over x minus 3. Now, there's a little restriction. This is where that's going to come into play. Let's take a look at the graphs of each. So the original graph of f of x, I'm just going to take an eraser here, looks like this. If you were to put in this into a graphing calculator, x minus 4 over x squared minus 7x plus 12, it would produce this graph here on the left. 1 over x minus 3, on the other hand, would produce this graph right here. So if we take a look at it, now, at first glance, these look the same, except for one tiny difference. See if you can spot it. We see it? Okay. Tiny, tiny little difference right there. There's a little hole on the graph right here. That's on this one on the left, that's not over here on the right. So what do you think is accounting for that? What's the difference here? Well, the difference here is that this one came from the original f of x, which when simplified to 1 over x minus 3, still gave you a restriction that x could not be equal to 4. Well, take a look at this graph here. Where is the hole wind up being? Of course, I've drawn over it, but the hole happens where x equals 4. So if you don't write out the restriction, if you don't write out that x can't be equal to 4, you're missing that hole, and all of a sudden this looks like it's exactly the same as this equation right here. So we have to be able to differentiate between the two, so the fact that we cancel out that factor of x minus 4 originally in f of x creates that hole there. So always write out your restrictions so we can avoid that. So are these equivalent? Technically, they are not equivalent, because in order for them to be equivalent, they have to produce the exact same graph. And all these graphs are close to each other. They're not exactly the same because one has a hole and one isn't, when one doesn't. So is this equivalent? Absolutely not. Alright, so that's it. Let's take a look at your homework here. So there's a little bit from the textbook here. Hopefully it won't take too long. And one extra one for you to simplify right here, just because we just like giving you extra. And the answers down here for you to check it when you're done. Now, the one thing just to add, just to confuse things a little bit more, when you look at your answers in the textbook lists every single restriction possible, including the ones that you can see from the final answer. And we don't want to write that. There's no reason to. It's not the domain. We're just writing out restrictions. So I only want you to write out the ones that are no longer obvious from the overall, from the final answer, essentially just like we did in the lesson. Your textbook will include every single restriction there is, including the ones that you see in the final answer. I do not want you to do that, not a test or quiz. I will not want you to do that either. I want you to do it the way we have been doing it in class. So again, just to illustrate that with an example, in a situation like, let's say this one right here, the textbook will write out both. The textbook will say that in this case that w can't be 7 or negative 7. If you do that, I will mark it wrong. Okay, the only one I want you to write here is positive 7, because that's the one that's no longer clear from the final answer. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Good luck with the homework, and then we'll move forward once we're ready. Yeah, cheers.